This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario. Hi everyone, it is Rebecca and Tara, and we are here today with book chat number 19. Hi, Tara.
Hi.
How's it going?
I was going to say hi, and then your flow seemed like you were going to keep going. So I'm like, oh no, I'll wait. And then there was a pause. I'm like, nope, this is me.
Nope, no flow. I got no flow today. So, how are you today? What's been going on?
I am good. Not much going on. We're getting ready to go for another camping trip. So next week.
Yay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super excited about that. Actually, I'm not sure when this one will air, so we may have already returned from our camping trip by the time it airs. But we're heading to Tobermory, which I'm super excited.
Have you
Yeah,
ever been there?
no, it's been on my list for years.
That's the one with the underwater
The shipwrecks,
shipwreck.
yeah,
Yeah.
the grotto and the flower pots. It looks beautiful. And I've already scoped out that there's a bookstore in town, like close by in the little town and stuff, and a chocolate store. So I'm like, sorry, like beautiful views, camping, chocolate, and books. Done. I'm in.
Absolutely. I'm so
Yeah.
jealous. I have a good friend who does deep sea diving and stuff,
Mm.
and he's here in Michigan, but he goes like all over the world and does it. And so one day I said, when I heard about that place, I sent it to him and I said, "Oh my God, you should go. It's not that far from us." And he said, "Oh, hell no." He goes, "I don't dive in cold water." So he only
Yeah.
goes to like Mexico and, wherever. So
Yeah.
it's too bad.
Our neighbor has told us that the water is cold.
Yeah.
So I am, I still, because it's so beautiful, I know I'm going to I'm going to have a dip, but I think it's going to be like a quick dip. But
Yeah.
I need to know them. Like I have to be able to say that, yes, I was in the water,
Yeah.
right? Because it's so
Excellent.
beautiful. But yeah.
Well, I'm so jealous. That's awesome. So,
What about
well,
you?
I don't have anything really that exciting at all, other than I've been taking my little Sidonia, who just turned 7. I've been taking her to day camp all week and having a lot of fun. I'm telling you, there's something, I think if ever you're feeling sad or hopeless or something, spend time with a 7-year-old because, I can't tell you how much from the minute she gets in my car until I drop her off. She sits in the back seat and she just says, "Hey, Aunt Becky." And then she says whatever. And then it's just immediate. It's like, "Hey, Aunt Becky." She just keeps saying it through the whole thing. And I think, you know what? That's the most attention that anyone ever requires of me. And I love it. It is so much fun. It makes me happy. And she makes me laugh every time. And she's just such a fun kid. So get yourself a 7-year-old, hang out with them, have a laugh, and it will make your whole summer. I really think so.
Yeah. Great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you currently reading?
Okay. I have 2 books that I'm currently reading, both of which I think you're going to be super excited for, actually.
Okay.
One I know that you've read and is a favorite of yours, and it is Where the Falcon Flies by Adam Shoalts. So that's my nonfiction book. I just started this morning. For anyone who hasn't read it, he embarks on a canoe trip from Long Point, which is in Lake Erie, Ontario, one of the Great Lakes, all the way up to the Arctic. He is canoeing up. He is crazy
He
in the
is.
best way. These books, I have to say, Rebecca, like even this morning, I'm only maybe 50 pages in. He's just kind of reached, he's just on the outskirts of Niagara Falls. I am so glad I know that he is alive because these books stress me out. He's a great writer in that he can get across that feeling of stress that he has. Although I feel like I'm more stressed than he is. He is cool. He's just calm. I don't know if he really is or he's able to like portray that or just put out that calmness because I need it at the same time that he's also stressing me out with the conditions.
Yeah. And it's so funny because when I interviewed him the very first time, I asked him something about like what scares you, or something happened, and I said, was that like the thing that scared you the most? And he said no. And oh, I know it is, because he's encountered grizzly bears, polar bears, etc., and moose, like which can do a lot of damage. And he says no, because all of that is natural to where he's at, and he knows what to do to be as safe as he can. And he's done a lot of research on bears, actually, academic research, but on bear attacks. But he said I think it was Hudson Bay. He was on his canoe at night going along the shore and trying to stay as close to the shore as he could. And he said that is what really scared him. And I said, for real? Like that scared you? And he said, think about it. It's dark. I had to get there because he had a time frame. And he said, if I went under, I'm gone. He said, that's it. Like nobody's coming to rescue me. And it's so cold that I'm not going to last that long. And I thought, I agree with you, because then that's what stresses me out reading his books as well, because I'm thankful we know he survived.
Mhm.
But it is, when you think about the danger, and I really believe people like him have to have that, like some gene or something that is turned off in their brain that is a fear thing.
Yeah,
Really. How else do they do it? Anyway.
I know. Yeah. Anyways, I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and thank
Yeah.
goodness he's alive. Like
Yeah.
that's getting me through the book. And I also love it, and you've mentioned this before, because you just Google the places. Like I have my map thing open so I can Google where he is at any point. He throws in these little tidbits of history, which are just like, it's pretty awesome. They're great books, great books. I went down afterwards when I was finished reading this morning and said to my husband, I'm like, I don't know if you've ever read, I'm like, I don't think you have, but I really think you would enjoy his books.
I'm a geography nerd, so I love all of his books, but I think his best book is this one, because I think anyone would love this book. It is
Yeah.
so fat. It's got the historical stuff, the the natural world, everything. And I will tell you the part that stressed me out the most, and I won't say more than this, but it's the St. Lawrence River part.
Mm,
That's all I'm going to
okay.
say.
Okay.
That stressed me out. The whole thing stressed me out.
I'll message you when I'm finished that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, my fiction book is a advanced copy that I got through NetGalley, and it is the new book by Katherena Vermette. So it's called Real Ones, and it publishes early September. This is I really like her reading and her writing, sorry, and her writing style for this book is very different from The Break and The Strangers. I think the second one was The Circle, right? That trilogy.
Hmm.
Very different writing style. It's very like kind of short, and I can't explain it, but I'm loving it. The story is about two sisters who are indigenous. Their father is Métis. Their mother is white, but for the last several years has been, I'm going to say posing as an indigenous person. She's an artist, so she's been posing as an indigenous person, and as a result has been getting awards, job positions that are meant for indigenous people. And she is outed at the beginning of the
Ooh.
book, so that comes fairly early. They learn, well, they knew anyways. It's a really interesting story already, only like 60 pages in, about how they're going to deal with the repercussions of it. Also, knowing that they already knew, like they knew their mom was white, and they're like, but it's their mom. So it's this weird thing of like a pretendian. So that whole relationship, that whole aspect, any repercussions they're going to feel. One is an artist. I think the other one is a professor at a university. So they could both have repercussions in their careers. And also that it's their mom. So there's like a personal relationship. Even if they are estranged from their mom, it's still their mom. It's a family relationship. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that one sounds
Great.
great. I
Great book.
definitely
And I'm
want to.
like only again 50 pages in.
Yeah, I definitely want to read that one for
Yeah,
sure.
she's phenomenal.
Well, I was reading two classic titles, and then I just decided I needed to break from classic literature, and I'll talk about the ones I read today. I'll talk about those. But so the only thing I'm reading right now, I'm actually not going to tell you the title,
Hmm.
because it was a book that was given to us by an author, and I am not liking it. And so the reason I decided to share that, I wasn't going to share it at first. And then I thought, no, I'm going to share it because here's the point that I think Tara and I both can make. When we talk about books that we are given by authors, which we are at this point, we get quite a few, right? By publishers and authors, we don't talk about them unless we really enjoy them. So I wanted to make that clear because I'm about 25 pages from the end. It's a murder mystery and it's set in like a private school. And I'm gonna read it. If it wasn't a whodunit, I would not care. I would have stopped by now. But I kind of want to know who done it. And at the beginning of the book, it has a cast of characters, and I didn't count them by line, but there's about 100 characters in the book. And the book is only about 200 on my e-reader it says 215 pages. But the text is it has a lot of text on a page, so it would be longer in real life, perhaps in a book format. But I want to know who done it, but I am not enjoying this process. So
Mm,
yeah, but I'm committed. And
yeah,
like I said, 25 pages from the end, so I'll finish it today.
yeah.
And
Do you know
but
why you're not enjoying? Like, can you
yeah,
verbalize why?
so it is. So far, I'm 25 pages from the end, and it's covered about a 36-hour period of time from the point where this person is murdered until where I'm at in the book. And it is so much detail about like this private school. And the author, I guess at one point in his career had worked at a private school. So I feel like if you ever wanted to know the minute details of what it's like to work at or attend a private school, this would be the book for you because it goes into so much detail and it's dense. And there are parts of it that are just so not necessary to the plot because I think the plot is being sort of forgotten in all this school detail. And that's why I'm just kind of going like, okay, I get that, but let's get to this. So really all that's been happening from the moment the person is dead is them interviewing possible suspects. That's it.
Hmm.
And there's no real. You're getting a hint every once in a while of somebody has information they're maybe not sharing, but it's 185 pages of interviews in detail. So yeah, and I think you have a copy of it as well.
I do. I
So
haven't started
I
reading it.
think I think read it, see if you enjoy it. We
Mhm.
don't obviously always agree, but I'm just like I want a murder mystery that's gonna m-
Move
move.
along. Yeah.
Yeah, like get me engaged. I'm just not engaged, but I felt committed to reading it. So anyway, that's what I'm currently reading, and then after that, I don't know because I have a lot on my plate and I don't know what to pick next. But it's a
Hmm.
mood thing, so we'll
Yeah.
see.
Interesting. Okay. Shall we get into our, I guess I would say not best books of the month, but our most notable reads of July and August, because we haven't had a book chat since June.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of catching up to do. You
Yeah, I'll
want to
let you
start?
go ahead and
Oh,
yeah, I'll let you go ahead and start.
okay. I'm going to start with a nonfiction book, a memoir that came out recently, I think mid July, end of July. And it is called The Widow's Guide to Dead Bastards by Jessica Waite. Loved this book. I think this is her first book. She's a great writer in that she sets a tone really well. She has like a really sharp sense of humor, a wit that's can be pretty biting, but she writes with a lot of honesty, of course, as you expect in a memoir, and genuineness. And the story is Jessica's husband. They have one child. I think he's like an older child. Um, so maybe late 30s, early 40s. He's not very old. Anyways, he dies of a heart attack. And this is not a spoiler because obviously the widow's guide to dead bastards. We find this out early. But when he dies, the heart attack happens. He is traveling. He is, I think, in Florida or somewhere in the States. They live in Alberta. So that alone is difficult to have your spouse die, but going through his stuff, she finds out that he has a secret life that
Mm-hmm.
involved pornography, among other things. But the first thing in the first chapter, she throws it at you in the best way. And it is her journey of moving through grief and also moving through like anger, because it's a side of her husband that he kept from her. So you understand her anger, you understand her grief, because she was in love with him. She loved him, even when their relationship wasn't easy. And it's like a journey of her finding herself back in love with him. And then also, I would say, in love with herself, and that she's able to move on and be like who she is, kind of thing, and be a single parent. It's a beautiful book. It's a fantastic book.
Does she have children? I'm just curious.
Yes, they had one child. So he's probably, I think, I'm going to say roughly 10 when his father passed. Maybe a little bit younger, actually. And he had a great relationship with his son. But sometimes he didn't. But I'll leave that up to you. I don't want to spoil anything, but she really lays it all out there. All out there. And then she also gets into the relationship, or the experience of being a widow. So not only with her going through grief, but then how people perceive her. And she had been told when her husband first died that there's a window of, like, I'm just going to make this number up, let's say like 6 months to a year, in which you can be the widow kind of thing, and everyone's understanding. And the person had said, like, after a certain point, it ends and people want you to be over it. And she was like, yeah, that actually happens. Like, people are like, move on. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's good. Highly recommend it.
Okay. I had a list of how I was going to go over the books I've read, but now I'm going to grab this one first because it ties into what I'm currently reading. I won a copy from Goodreads of Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. And I have to tell you, he's an Australian author. He's written some other things, I think, with the same kind of premise. But talk about somebody who knew how to write a mystery. This thing is a rollicking, great read. I absolutely loved it. It's funny. He's talking to you, the author, and who is one of the characters who had killed somebody in his, had killed somebody, because he admits everybody in his family has killed somebody. And he tells you right from the get-go there are certain things about a mystery, and I'm trying to remember. I don't have the book in front of me. I actually loaned it to somebody, but basically it was Agatha Christie and a couple of other famous authors at the time. They wrote this thing of like how to write a mystery, right?
Yeah, the
And so
rules or something, right?
yeah, and I think there's like 10 of them or something. And so he's kind of going through, and he even tells you at the very beginning in the intro on what page there is a death. He tells you on every page number. And sometimes he'll go back and he'll say, after he'll write about it, then he'll say, see, I told you, page like 186 or something. And it's really funny. So and I must have had like 30 Post-its tagged in that book, because I thought, no, I'm going to figure it out. Like, I'm reading the rules. I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to get this thing. Now, of course, I didn't, but it didn't matter because it was so much fun. So I said in my review on Goodreads, if you're looking for a great beach read, it reads fast, it's fun, it's entertaining. It's just everything you want in a book. If you need to break a reading slump, oh
Yeah.
my God, pick up this book.
Okay, my second book, I apologize because I know I have brought it. I don't think I brought it to the podcast, but I have brought it to our most recent episode of Reading from Our Shelves, which is available on our YouTube channel, in which Rebecca and I like do a live YouTube, so you can see the book. And that is The Backyard Bird Chronicles by Amy Tan. I love birds. I loved birds anyways, and like very amateur bird watcher. I wouldn't even call myself a bird watcher in the sense that I specifically go out to watch birds, but I love watching birds when I'm outside. I don't know if there's a distinction, but in my head there is. So Amy Tan in this book, she chronicles from, I think, 2019 to fairly present day, her bird watching in her backyard and her setup with her bird feeders and what she's learned about her birds with her sketches, because she also picked up nature sketching right at the beginning of it. So you get her words, her journal entries, along with a sketch of whichever birds or whatever's happening. And you see the progression of like her early drawing versus where she is now. And she's a phenomenal nature artist. I love this book. I dare you to read this book and not want to put up a bird feeder and sit and watch your birds. And then also download the Merlin app so you can identify birds by sound as you walk around your neighborhood, because that's what I do. And I have Rebecca doing it. And it's awesome.
Yeah. And I was sitting on my front porch one morning and I texted you right away because I heard a crow and an osprey. And I was like, ospreys in my area where I live? Like crows, we get them occasionally. It's very, I would say it's very sporadic and it's not very often. But an osprey, I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
So I would have never, ever, ever, ever known that if I hadn't had been using the app. So
I
I
know.
agree. I highly recommend the Merlin
Yeah.
app.
So that's a two for you. Got a book recommendation and an app recommendation. I probably will not be able to like pair those again. So this is first and only time it's going to happen.
I love that. Okay. Yeah, I do want to read that book as well because it does look pretty awesome. Okay, the first book I want to share in order now is a book, and I'm going to show you the cover.
Yes. Oh,
So
that's
this
beautiful.
is, yeah, this is called Golden Boys, the Winnipeg Falcons of 1920. And it's a graphic novel. And I think the illustrations are amazing. Like it really is. I said, this is the best graphic novel, sort of nonfiction graphic novel I've ever read. This is really an amazing story because did you know about the Winnipeg Falcons of 1920?
No, no.
Okay, Canadians, you gotta read this book. If you've got, and I said this is a great book for reluctant readers, any kid who's into sports. I think they would love this story. It is about a team comprised of players of Icelandic descent who were living in Winnipeg, and they faced a lot of racism, and they were literally the first hockey gold medal in Olympic history, but they often get overlooked because I think it was not, I don't know if it was an official sport at that point or not, but they get overlooked. But their story's amazing because here they were trying to just live their life in Winnipeg and people were not treating them very well. And especially when they teamed up and started beating other people, they didn't, beating them in hockey. They weren't really highly respected. And then all of a sudden, of course, everybody loved them because they came back with a gold medal. So it's really well done. I actually purchased this through Teach Media, which is a publisher of graphic novels, fiction and nonfiction for young readers and stuff. So anyway, I love this book. I want to highly recommend it. So again, I did write about it in my Instagram account. So if you want to see the cover there, take a look at it. But it's really, I just enjoyed the story. It was something I just didn't know, and they told the story really well.
Nice. My third book is by Chris Whitaker, and it is All the Colors of the Dark. So it is his latest book. I would call it a literary mystery slash thriller. Maybe not thriller. No, let's just go with literary mystery. For the setup, it's 1970s. I cannot remember the state. I think it's Missouri. And there is a serial killer on the loose. And young girls from this one community are disappearing. And a young boy, I'm drawing a blank as to his name, so I apologize for that. He interrupts the abduction of one of his classmates. So he sees one of his classmates being abducted. He interrupts in such a way that the young girl can get away, but he is taken. That's kind of the starting point of it. and there's a search for him as his best friend, who's a young girl the same age, insists that he is still alive and wants to keep finding him or looking for him. I'm being hesitant about what I say because I don't want to spoil anything
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the story, but it is, just start off with that, and just, that's all you need to know, because the story is amazing. It spans 20 to 30 years of this young boy's life. I've given you a little bit of a spoiler there, obviously, but and his best friend, and they're growing apart. They're coming together. His search for a killer, for love. It's just amazing. It's an amazing book. I feel terrible. That's all I can tell you, but I really don't want to spoil it. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite books ever. Like, I'm like, this is a book that I'm like, it's going to stay with me. I bought or I'm not, I haven't bought, I borrowed a copy from the library, but I will be purchasing a copy because I am a rereader and I like to reread books and I want to spend time with these characters again.
Wow. Was the kid's name was Patch? Does that sound
That's it.
familiar?
Patch.
Okay.
Thank you.
And it was set in Missouri. So you
Oh,
remember
okay.
that.
So,
Good for you.
yeah. Yeah.
Man, that's very good.
Good book.
Again, sounds fabulous. I want to read that one
Yep.
too. Oh
Oh,
my
you'll love
gosh.
it, Rebecca. You really will. I guarantee it. I mean, I can't 100% guarantee, but I'm like 97% guarantee that you will love it.
Okay. Well, it's on a very long list, but I will try to get to that soon because it does sound I think I would really, really like it.
Hmm.
So okay, my next book, since I just showed a graphic novel, now I'm going to talk about a book that I've talked about a number of times on the podcast and also on our YouTube channel for one of our reading from our shelves. But I want to mention that I completed my challenge to read Project 562 this year, which is kind of a coffee table book. It's about 400, a little over 400 pages. And it is Matika Wilbur spent a decade going around and talking to indigenous people all across the United States and wrote I mean, sometimes like a 1 page or 2 pages or 3 pages of a profile of a person, an indigenous person in the US, and a wide variety of people. But she acknowledges the tribe from which they come and all the things I never knew that I learned through reading this book. And I tried to read like one a day, but then I got to the toward the end of the book and I think I knocked out like 20 pages at the end because I thought, no, I'm so close to the end and I don't want to stop reading. And it was fabulous. And I will show it on from reading from our shelves again. I will show it on our next live because not the illustrations, the photography is absolutely stunning. She did a phenomenal job. And again, if you look at my Instagram account, I did screenshot some of the pages in it, but it's really hard to see. If you've got to really have that book in front of you. But I think what a legacy that she's left for us, anyone who wants to just see the state of life for Indigenous people and how the triumphs, the successes, the challenges that they've faced living within our system. So it's not. It has an equal mix of sort of angst, but powerful hope in it, and successes, which it blew my mind because again, I learned so much I didn't know. And it puts you down that rabbit hole, right? So you start looking things up and you start going like, "Oh my god, I didn't know this." So anyway, I loved it. I think if anybody wants to take it on as a challenge, I think it's a really great way to spend a year or half a year, whatever. It took me, about 9 months to finish it or 8 months to finish it. So anyway, I just wanted to bring it up again.
Yeah. Well, and congratulations on ticking a box for your goals for the year.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because the other one's dragging. So one of my other ones is dragging. But anyway.
Okay, my next book, I'm bringing something completely different. Completely different. I'm bringing a romance. I know we don't read a lot of romance, but it's fun to throw it out there sometimes because some people are looking, especially summertime. The book is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. So Christina Lauren is actually two authors who write under that pseudonym. So it's two friends. I don't have their names, of course. That would have been made me be too prepared. But so it's two women who write together as Christina Lauren. This is their most recent book. So The Paradise Problem. I read this with my local book club and I really enjoyed it. It's just a fun romance. It's a light read, but yet well written with great characters. Like the two main characters, it is like a hetero, straight, male, female romance, but they're both great characters. I love it when you have both characters are really well written. So you can like both of them and then enjoy the journey of them getting together. Essentially, they were roommates. They got married for a particular reason when they were in university and then went their separate ways. And now he is the son of, he's in a family who owns a large grocery store chain in the US. And I can't remember why, but for some reason he needs to be married and it's his sister's wedding. So he needs that roommate to come back and pretend to be his wife while they go on a what is it when a destination wedding with his
Mhm.
uber rich entitled family, who for the most part some of them are quite lovely and some of them are deplorable, especially the father. He is, I totally almost swore then, he's terrible. He's a terrible person. uh, The setting's beautiful. It's an exotic tropical island. The two characters are fantastic. It's a little spicy, but not like too spicy, but a little spicy. You know, it's a little open door, more than a little open door, but it's a fun read. If you're looking for a romance, highly recommend it. It's a good one.
I have to laugh. My mom listens to talking books,
Mhm.
and she gets them through the Library of Michigan. But anyway, I was walking past her room the other day, and she was listening because her friends are telling her about all these romance authors she should be listening to. And I walked past her room the other day, and it was during a spicy scene in the
Mm.
book. I'm listening to my mom listening to stuff that I'm like, "Oh, well, that's really interesting," because books have changed from the time when she used to read romance books, mostly her whole life, but still, it's a lot spicier now than it was back in the day
Mhm.
when I started reading them and everything. So I thought that was hilarious to
Yeah.
hear her listening to that. Okay, let's see. What am I gonna? Oh, the book I want to talk about next, and I have to show you this. So it's the Book of Delights by Ross Gay. It's a series of essays. He decided to kind of almost like write a sort of like a gratitude journal type of thing for a year from his birthday to his next birthday. And as you can see, Tara, I did sort of
Mhm.
start tagging. I should have tagged all the stories that I really loved, and I only started tagging towards the end. But these essays were fabulous, and they're actually really short. As you can see, sometimes they're just one
Oh, yeah.
paragraph, one page, and sometimes they go over 2 or 3 pages. But again, the book is actually physically it's a smaller book. I loved this book. This was so much fun. I feel like after spending 7 months reading it over the course of this year, that I feel like I know Ross, and he's written other books, and he's a poet. I really would love to read more of his stuff. And this was a New York Times best-selling book, so probably you saw it on a shelf somewhere at some point. Do yourself a favor, pick it up. It's just so much fun. There are 102 essays in it, and the one I just want to mention just to give a hint of what's in it. So one of the titles, I think it was number 69, it was called Jenky, Jenky. And it was basically about, when he was raised in a family that was working class, didn't have a lot of money. So they had to find ways to, fix something because you couldn't afford to buy it new. So you had to just fix what you had. And it reminded me of my first car that I had. The little knob for the heater was broken off. And so I could slot a butter knife in there and I could flip it up or off on or off really, really easily. I was able to do it without sticking it all the way through the back of the or towards the motor, I guess. But anyway, and one time I just had somebody in the car with me and needed to turn it on or off, and whipped out that butter knife and did it, and their eyes just like bugged out, like, oh my God, what are you doing? And then I realized, well, I didn't know how else to fix it, right? I wasn't going to take it in and have them repair it, because that would have cost me an arm and a leg. So I thought, wow, I have a little bit in common with Ross Gay, in that I too grew up in a family, working class family, that did not buy new. We repaired what we had. So it just brought that memory back, and it was kind of fun.
Yeah, I want to pick up that book and read it slowly, the same way, like have the same kind of reading experience with it.
Yeah, it was yeah, because if you read, I think if you read them all just one after another, you have to really sit with Ross and get inside of his head, and I think it really works that way if you just try to parse them out a little bit and enjoy the experience.
Okay, my next book is going to be a slightly divisive book between Rebecca and I, and it is Road Ends by Mary Lawson. So Rebecca lent this book to me. She's already read it. We had a slightly different experience with it. I'll just set it up briefly here. 1960s in the fictional town north of Northern Ontario called Strawn, about an extremely dysfunctional family. You get multiple POVs of the father, the older brother, and the sister. And the sister actually leaves the family and moves to London for a period of time. So it alternates between their multiple points of view. Something the brother himself, the older brother, is dealing with a tragedy with his best friend that has occurred. The mother is in the background, but largely uninvolved in the family, except when she's having a baby, because I believe there were 8 or 9 siblings total. Most of those siblings are receive no care or no, that's not the right word. What am I trying? What's the word I'm trying to think of? When
Well, they don't receive care. What do you
they don't
mean?
receive care. Really, they don't. Once they reach a certain age and the mother is finished with them as being the baby that she can carry, she kind of then has another baby, and the father is just not mentally equipped or emotionally equipped to take care of them as children. And they just kind of flounder around, and that's the story. You're just following their story over maybe 2 to 3 years. Extremely dysfunctional, as I've said. I loved it. Rebecca, what did you think of the book?
I hated it. So I love that you and I are completely on opposite this spectrum could not be further apart
Yeah,
in this book. And I will just say one thing, and then I'll let you go finish what you're saying.
yeah,
I did, after I read it, I was so horrified because, again, I love Mary Lawson. Her writing, it's not about the writing,
yeah.
and her writing is just
No,
beautiful. I love Mary Lawson. But I went through Goodreads and started looking for reviews, because I thought, what the F? I cannot believe that everybody gave this such high praise. And I found one or two reviews that agreed with how I felt when I read it. So I was like, you know what? Most people love it. I did not. And a couple of others of us did not either.
yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway.
I was going to say, we both agree that her writing is like, it's a quiet book in that not a lot happens, although a lot does happen, but it's not like a plot driven book. So you don't have that experience of being like a compulsive read and that you want to find out, what happens. But yet her writing gives me that experience because I want to know what happens to these characters. Like I find myself flying through her books because I'm like, I must know what happens to that little boy. What happens to the sister? Is she going to stay in London? What happens, to the father? Does he wake the F up and like realize that he has a 4-year old walking around in urine stained clothes kind of thing? So yeah, but are they likable characters on the whole? No. But what she does at the end, totally. I loved it. And
Yeah.
yet I understand why you didn't.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I want to just say about Mary Lawson, is that I agree. They're kind of quiet stories, but she makes those people feel like real people, and you care about these people,
Mhm.
and you not only do you want to, like, read compulsively to get to find out, "Oh my gosh, what happens to them?" But you care about them afterwards. You kinda wonder, like, "I wonder how
Yeah.
they're doing now." And she has brought different characters back because there were 2 characters in this book that she brought back from one of her other books, the 2 brothers. I can't remember their names, but they were in another one of her books. But anyway, so she creates a world that feels like real people, and I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah.
I know. I know, because I did at one point while reading the book, I out loud yelled at the father because I can't even, it wasn't, I can't, don't think I can say it. I think it would have been with an expletive. So I cannot say it, but I yelled at the father because I wanted him to, do something that he wasn't doing.
And I will say, if anyone cares, I did talk about the book. I don't even I know I read it this year, no, last year? Oh, no, I read it, I think, of January of last year because it was the first book of the year I read, and I was like, "What the hell?" I started my year, I love Mary Lawson. I thought, "Oh, I love Mary Lawson. I'll start out with the best book for the year," and then I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
So you can always go back to listen to January of '23 and catch my review, but yeah, and I've talked about it since then too, kind of joking about how much I hated it, but I hated the plot
Yeah.
or what happens to the
Characters.
characters or
Yeah.
something, but not the book is beautiful. And again,
Yeah.
chances are if you read it, you will love it as well.
And if not, let us know. Like if you felt the same way as Rebecca or myself, let us know. I love knowing. I don't need everyone to love the same books.
I know, and I need somebody to be on my side on this one. I just need one person who reads it that goes, "Yeah, Beck, I get it. I get why you didn't like it, and I felt the same way." But if you
Oh,
don't, that's okay.
I was gonna say, and I understand why you felt that, like, why you feel the way you do. I just didn't. Like, and
I
I was
know.
kind of expecting it because I knew you that you had, like, an issue. I didn't know what it was, so I was like, "I may not love this book, but it's, Mary Lawson, I'm going into it." But I
Yeah.
was like, "Nope. I'm sorry, Rebecca. Loved it." Yep.
I love it. I think this will go down well, maybe this will go down as our friendship as being the most divided opinion that we have of a book, that we are both on extreme ends of that
Yeah.
spectrum, which I think is wonderful. So, okay. All right. Now, the next book I want to talk about is I just read Fahrenheit 451. I did a buddy read with our friend Jen, and it was so funny too because I just said to her, like, "Oh, what are you reading?" And she said, "I'm reading Fahrenheit 451." I said, "I've never read that." And then she said, "Oh, well, I'm only about a third of the way through. If you want, we could buddy read it." I was like, "Okay, that sounds good." And I could immediately pick up the exact same edition at my public library, ran over there, picked it up, started reading it. The reason, and I don't need to talk about it, I just want to say this. Some books are so iconic in literature that we feel like we know what the story is because so much has been said about it in so many different ways, or it could have been a movie or whatever. I so did not have this story in my head. It's so funny. Like if you'd had a multiple choice and said, "This is what this book is about," sort of not just about, but how it sort of plays out,
Mhm.
I would have missed it. Totally would have missed the answer. So it was wonderful to read. I got so much out of it. We did kind of a deep dive, and I had I every chapter, there's 3 chapters. Each chapter must have had like 20 post-its in it because it just really so much of it. And I think I just want to share one quote from it because I did put it on my Instagram because I just thought this was so beautiful, so profound. So it's quote, "Everyone must leave something behind when he dies. It doesn't matter what you do, so long as you change something from the way it was before you touched it into something that's like you after you take your hands away."
Hmm.
Unquote. I just thought that was so beautiful. Like, I think that's got to be my favorite quote in a book ever. I just thought that was so beautiful. And it wasn't something I expected to find in this story. But I would just say, I would love to hear if you have a comment about reading something that's classic that kind of did not, that you weren't expecting because you felt like you already knew it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so iconic. Yeah, this one surprised me and I loved it. It was definitely a 5-star read for me.
Okay, I'm going to take another veer away from what we normally read. And
Mhm.
my latest one, which I finished even just 2 days ago, The Puppet Master by Sam Holland, which is book 3 in the, oh, I can't remember what the series is. I can't remember the name of her series. But the first book was The Echo Man, second book was 20. It follows Sam Holland is a UK writer, so it's set in the UK. The main cast of characters that are carried throughout the series are police officers, and each book has a serial killer in it, and it's a hunt for the serial killer. And they're often quite graphic. This one less so than the first two, actually. The first two,
Mhm.
especially the second book, had me. I was quite squeamish, and I had to like glance over a couple sections. So this one, I didn't find it quite as graphic, but they're super fun. And then you get the development of these characters that you're really getting to know and follow their story. And they're also the police officers themselves are often flawed characters, because that's often what a good police officer character is: flawed, deeply flawed, sometimes not. But super fun book. I loved it.
I agree with you about flawed characters. That's probably my number one favorite thing of all
Yeah,
time. So, oh yeah, I looked it up. The Puppet Master, it said it's book 3 in the series Major Crimes.
that's it. Thank you.
Ooh, that sounds really
Oh,
freaky.
good. I and now I'm ready for book 4. Like, and she always leaves it, there's not like there's another one coming, and I'm like, and I think she's probably once a year. Like, she's a fairly new author, so these once a year a new one's coming out. So now I just have to wait till next summer for the next one.
Okay, so I'm going to finish up my last 2 books. Are books that are part of my challenge for reading 12 classic female authors. And so I have to laugh. I'm not going to lie cuz girl got to do what a girl got to do, but I'm picking books that are smaller so that I can finish
That's
my
okay.
challenge. Doesn't mean I'm not going to read all these other great books that are on my list from the beginning of the year, but I'm looking for short books now. So I
Yeah.
read The Member of the Wedding by Carson McCullers, and it's basically a story. It's set in the South, and it's about a girl. I mean, I can't remember if she's 11 or 12 or something, and or she could, I don't know. Well, whatever, doesn't matter. So her brother is getting married, and he's in the military, so he's been gone, and he's getting married, and she has it in her mind that she's going to get the heck out of her small town. She is over it. She's done. And she's going to go on the honeymoon with the wedding couple. That's her plan. And I was saying it originally that I felt like I had been reading this book for just months and months and months and sort of slogging through it. And after I finished it, I think part of it was I was identifying with the girl in the story, not in terms of how things actually played out, but her feelings. And I think I was just struggling a little bit because I just felt like I think that I was that kid at that age. I just really did. So I didn't realize how hard it was for me to read that book and I'm being very candid and very vulnerable
Mhm.
here, but I think that's why I struggled. I would read it and then I'd put it away and I'd go, come on, you got to finish this book. It's not that long. Just finish the book. And by the time I got to the end of the book, it did start to dawn on me that I was like, oh my God, I think it's because this is who I was at that age. And I, of course, loved her. By the end of the
Mm.
book, I loved her, even though she had some, you know, happy moments and some really horrible moments. Uh, it's just like a coming of age, right?
Mhm.
And I just thought it's a really beautiful story. I loved it. And I love her. I can't think of her name because of course I don't have the book in front of me, but Yeah, I think that's why. So now when I say I slogged through it, it was more that I just couldn't keep picking it up, and I
Hmm.
think that's what it was more than anything.
Interesting. Okay, my last book for today. I'm on a mystery kick, like a big chunky mystery kick. So the last one, The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. So this one is set in, it's not the Appalachians, I'm sorry, it's somewhere up in the woods of New York State. And
Adirondacks.
that's it. That's it. Yes. I think in the late 90s at a summer camp, and a young girl goes missing. The young girl happens to be the daughter of the very rich family who owns the land and the summer camp. And their summer home is actually is on the land where the summer camp is found. Add to this that I think 14 years earlier, her brother also disappeared in the same woods. So
Ooh.
it becomes a search for this young girl as well as a search for the young boy who was never seen again. So you're looking for a killer, perhaps. You're looking for a young, and in that you get the story of this rich family and also of the people who work for this rich family. So it's a mystery, but it's also a story of class, the class divide. Phenomenal. It's a great book. I haven't read anything by Liz Moore. This is my first book of hers, but I will search out her earlier work.
So this must be a library book, right? I
Yes.
feel like some of these, because they're current reads, or I mean, they're like
Yeah.
brand new books.
A lot of them are ones that I'd heard about months before they were released. Heard a little bit of buzz about these books. So then I instantly went and put a library hold on them, and then they just came out. So that's why I got a lot of my reading this summer has been library books because I don't manage my holds very well. I really like putting on library holds. And sometimes, of course, if it's a buzzy book, they all tend to be, if I'm hearing about them at around the same time, then they're all kind of being released at the same time. And then, depending on how popular they are, they're all being thrown at me at the same time. And so I've been very happy with them because they've been great books. But yeah, a lot of library books.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my last book is I sort of saved maybe one of my all-time favorites for
Oh,
the last book to talk about, which is I did mention it on our reading from our shelves YouTube live, but Picnic at Hanging Rock. And this is an Australian book by Joan Lindsay. And I had seen the movie, God, like I think it came out in the early 80s or something, or maybe it was the late 70s. I can't remember. But it was directed by Peter Weir, who's just a master of really uh, books. I mean, movies that evoke a lot of emotion and a sense of place. And this one definitely did that. So, and I think part of why I loved it so much too is I sort of, even though it's been so long ago since I saw the movie, I still had that movie kind of feel, that vibe in my head because I never forgot the movie. But it's basically about a group of, and it's set in 1900 in Australia, and it's about a group of girls from Appleyard College for young ladies, and they decide to go on a picnic, and two teachers go with them, and this is just an outing for the day. And they take a horse drawn kind of carriage or whatever out there. And it's a real place in Australia. So if you want to look it up, because it gives you a sense of how sort of spooky the setting is or could be. And it has, for the Indigenous peoples in that area in Australia, it has obviously, it's a place of reverence and just meaning to Aboriginal people. So the girls are there for the afternoon, and four of them go missing, and a teacher. So four of the girls and a teacher go missing. One girl does come back, but she has no memory of what happened. She cannot in any way, shape, or form articulate what happened. And that is the story. And I will just say, if you decide to read this book, it's really about the setting. It is so, I kind of put in my comments, it's the story is inexplicable, it's ethereal, and it's a harrowing story, but place is definitely a character. And so if you like those kind of books, I would definitely pick it up. But I will tell you, when you don't read the introduction all the way through to the end, don't read the introduction after you're done with the book. You're not going. You don't need to read it first. But if you read it first, it's going to kind of give away some stuff, and you don't want to know that. I actually, since I knew the story already, I read up to a certain point, and I thought, now I think I'm going to stop here. So just don't do that. But check out the book. Check out the movie. Read and watch. It's amazing. And I think especially in the late 70s, early 80s, a lot of Australian movies came out and really hit American theaters in a huge way. There was that huge Australian wave of film. And I think that's one of the reasons I loved it so much. And I always wanted to read it. And I did. Loved it. Highly recommend it. 5 stars. Great book.
Awesome. We have a varied list of books. Between the two of us, we went with some very new modern books, contemporary, I should say, and then you hitting it old school. I like it.
And I realized too, I've said this to Tara before, I realized since my challenge is I'm just really this year into classic literature because I'm reading the things I missed out on for whatever reason, went to not a very great high school, I guess. And I can't get enough of it. So I realized that maybe some of these recommendations, people are either going to say, already read it, or, oh my God, I'm totally not interested. But it is my reading path this year. So it's all good.
Yeah. No shame. Everyone's reading journey is their own reading journey. And we're just happen to be sharing ours. So
absolutely.
Well, I think that's it for this month's book chat. Happy reading, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.